welcome to the Filmcast's review of Lisa Frankenstein. Joining us for this review, she is a writer podcaster at slashfilm.com. She's also the host of the podcast This Ends at Prom. BJ Colangelo, welcome back to the Filmcast.
Hi.
So great to have you here, BJ. Lisa Frankenstein, the latest film written by Diablo Cody, directed by Zelda Williams. I'm going to read the plot summary from the internet. Quote, a misunderstood teenager and a reanimated Victorian corpse embark on a murderous journey together to find love, happiness, and a few missing body parts.
This feels like it's right in BJ's wheelhouse. This is
Absolutely.
This ends at prom.
This was
perfect,
just
right?
built in a lab for me.
Or a tanning bed, whatever the case may be.
All right, so BJ Colangelo, why don't you walk us through your overall reaction to Lisa Frankenstein?
Oh, this is a movie that I have been dying to see ever since it was first announced, but I'm so thrilled that I love this movie. It hits, all those sweet spots for me. It's a coming of age movie. It's got a weirdo goth girl protagonist. It's got Diablo Cody teen speak. It's a horror comedy. It's got 80s pastiche. It's very vibrant to look at. It's everything that is going to make me happy.
So BJ's a big fan of this movie. I gotta say, Diablo Cody, I would say is she has written a bunch of movies, from my perception, that have been underrated when they've been released, and then people will look back on and then say, "Boy, that movie was awesome."
Or we just don't talk about them again, like Tully and Young Adult, which I think are incredible.
Tully is so brilliant.
Tully is so good.
Yes, Tully, amazing. Yeah, that's a.
Yes.
I had completely forgotten about that movie, but that was
the problem.
That
Young
was
Adult is great.
Young Adult is
good.
Young Adult. I we reviewed that movie on the Filmcast.
Yes,
that movie is amazing, right?
I think we reviewed Tully as well.
I think we did too. I saw it for a review. Yeah.
So Tully as well, and great films, and that haven't done well at the box office. Unfortunately, Lisa Frankenstein gonna add to that list of movies not doing well at the box office. Historically bad box office this weekend, by the way. One of the worst that we've had in the last few years. Very few movies making money right now. Here's the question for Devindra Hardware: Is this a movie that right out the gate you love, or do you think maybe you're going to revisit it later and enjoy it more, or none of the above? What do you think?
I will say, on paper, just like EBJ, this is a movie that felt like it was being sold to be. Like, I love Diablo Cody's stuff. I feel like she is one of those people where people just like hear the name and get annoyed about like the things they disliked about Juno at some point. And I love Juno. Juno's a great movie. Shut up. I think Diablo Cody is great. Even like, we don't talk about Ricky and the Flash. Ricky and the Flash, great movie. So I like her, and I felt like she was also maturing as a writer. Like, Tully is such a devastating film. I saw that with a whole bunch of friends, and everybody in that theater was just kind of like laid out by the end of it. I love Catherine Newton. Kind of love everybody involved here too. I love 80s music. I love 80s pastiche. I think this is a really great concept for a film, but I don't know what it is. It feels like the editing is off or something. It feels like it has a lot of great elements. I think the script has some great lines that I'll mention some in spoilers. And it just feels like the movie is not built around really highlighting some of those things. So the comedy feels weirdly too long. Like, it's not as snappy as you would expect. Like, there's a lot of things that just don't kind of congeal properly for me. And that's kind of the thing. So I feel like I want to love this movie. There are many things I do like about it. It's Cole Sprouse being this weird Frankenstein-like monster, I think is kind of funny. Like, he has a great physicality to him. Some of the actors, Carla Gugino kind of going all in as like evil stepmother, I think is a lot of fun. I thought this movie was rough at the beginning, but it really warmed on me as I was watching it. And by the end, I just wish it was tighter. I wish like they hit those comedic beats tighter. I wish like some scenes were framed better, because it also feels like it feels kind of lazy at times in terms of how it's shot and how certain scenes are structured. It just feels like there's more meat on the bone here, as you'd say. And I feel like the movie doesn't fully take advantage of what the script is offering, what the cast is offering. So, I did like in watching it. I don't know if this will be a movie I'll be revisiting, although my wife may be into it, so I may see it again then.
Jeff, I was gonna piggyback a little bit off of what Devindra said about editing, if that doesn't step on anything that you're going to go into. Okay, or I can wait for you. Or I can wait for you, Jeff Kanata. Hit us up with your thoughts on Lisa Frankenstein.
Well, Dave, my thoughts on Lisa Frankenstein are best summed up in the form of a limerick.
All right, let's hear it, Jeff. Let's hear it.
The campy enjoyment declines with slowly delivered punchlines. Pick up the pace and maybe replace one of history's most dull Frankensteins.
Boo
So
hiss, get off the stage.
It's right in the. See, Jeff, I checked with you. I was like,
Thank you. I appreciate you checking.
I don't want to step all over what Jeff's about to say.
I agree 100% with every single thing that Devindra said. Literally every single thing. I am in lockstep. I think this movie had much more potential than is realized. And I think it's not Diablo Cody's fault. It's Zelda Williams' fault. Unfortunately. This is a directorial failure, in my opinion. I don't mean to come down too hard on a specific person, but I do feel like it is not snappy. This is something I talk about a lot when we talk about comedies, is film comedies rely on editing to the joke, and knowing how to pick up cues, cut just a second here or a half of a second there on an edit can be all the difference in having a joke land or not land. And we just linger. And I think the direction of the actors is at fault too, because we just pick up the cues faster, every line, double the pace of the delivery of every line, specifically in the first half of this movie. I do agree with Devindra. I think the second half, and in particularly the third act of this movie, is where the most fun is had. And we get into some real goofy fun. I mean, this movie it wants to be Edward Scissorhands. It wants to be, it is channeling Tim Burton in a lot of ways. And it really wants to be a big, campy, goofy, fun time. And it almost gets there. It basically gets there by the end, but it takes so long to get there that I was just already frustrated with how, like, move, movie, please. I do think there is one particular gag at the end that feels to me like the entire motivation for the script. Like, I feel like Diablo Cody had an idea for one thing and it motivated writing the entire movie. And it's worth it, right? It's a funny joke. It's a funny idea. But man, it takes so long to get there. And particularly the first act is just in molasses, it feels to me. And if literally everybody was at double the pace and all the editing was trimmed, this movie could have been really funny. And unfortunately, it just languishes inside its own slow pace.
There's one line I could call out outside of spoilers. At one point, Carla Gugino's like, you can eat off of my carpet. And it's an offhanded line in the background. And it just feels like she's giving you gold. This is funny.
Right.
Do you see this is funny movie? And it's just like offhanded to character in the background. And it's like, we could have had so much more. Yeah.
The movie is like in this emo place for the first third. And it's just it feels so slow to me. And it bums me out because I do think you hear the jokes in the script, like you're talking about, Devindra. You hear the jokes and they're good. And you go, the movie just didn't highlight that. It didn't make those, the execution is where those fail.
I feel the same way. This is a case of a film where all the right ingredients are there, right? I thought the script is solid. The movie looks pretty good. The cast is great. And it's really weird to experience a movie that I feel like died in the edit. Like, it's very rare where I feel like I watch a movie, it's like, this one aspect is what's wrong with the movie. Like, the set dressing is the thing that ruined the movie, but I feel that way about this movie in the edit. And also, to some degree, as Devindra hinted at, the shot composition. A lot of the shots take place in a two-shot. That is to say, like, you see both characters in frame. That gives you fewer options for cutting, right? Comedy is often made in timing. There's a reason when you watch, like, a Judd Apatow movie, and at the end, you see like all the bloopers of all the lines that they didn't use in the movie or whatever. And it's like it's shot reverse shot. They're cutting back and forth and they're just using like the best takes. A lot of this movie takes place in two shot, where you see two characters together on screen, and that is deathly to the movie's
it can
pacing.
work. That can work. That can work if you direct the actors.
Exactly. Correct. There's nothing. You're right. There's nothing inherently wrong with the two shot. Let me make that clear. But the way that the actors' performances are delivered, it doesn't support what the sort of the directorial choices that were made.
What's that old vaudevillian trope? Faster is funnier. Faster is funnier.
See,
okay, BJ,
and
go ahead.
I was like, I'll push back on this though, because the thing that people keep bringing up, and I see it obviously, is the Tim Burton, elements and all of those inspirations. But the sense of humor that this film has is so much more in line with 80s sex comedies, but specifically 80s sex comedies that we don't talk about. So films like Pretty Smart with Patricia Arquette, where there is just a random, for no reason, musical number of them like gallivanting around Europe. And it's like, why is this here? We don't know. Don't question it. There is so much of that sense of humor in here. I also look to like Better Off Dead with John Cusack, where like characters don't feel like they're in the same movie. A lot of the lines end up lingering a little bit too long. And that humor like really resonated with me once I realized watching this movie, oh, it's this sort of 80s comedy, like a literal actual 80s comedy, not a comedy that happens to be set in the 80s, that I could like rewire my brain. And it's like, all right, cool. Now this editing makes total sense to me. And if this is what she's going for, she's accomplishing it.
I think that's a fair point. I did have that sense that the filmmaking was trying to channel a bygone era. I did have that sense. I just don't think I don't think that is a successful choice. If that was a choice, then that didn't work for me. Like I didn't.
Yeah. And I think that's totally fair. Like it can not work for you, but also she clearly achieved what she set out to do. And it's just going to be a matter of whether or not that is a brand of comedy that you're still going to like click with. Because even in the 80s, that brand of comedy did not click with people.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you get any like John Waters vibes from it?
Oh, yeah. A friend of mine and I were talking about this movie, and we said, this is what happens when you grow up watching John Waters movies and then try to make a John Hughes movie, which is every script I've ever written. So again, this hits right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Anyway, are there any other thoughts we have before we get to spoilers? Because there's a few things that happen in this movie that might be worth mentioning.
I think like some things I want to point out, like we're bringing up Tim Burton, and there's Edward Scissorhand vibes here, but there's also Beetlejuice vibes, especially when it comes to the main character. I think the other thing that kind of kills this movie for me is that it doesn't feel believable in certain respects. Like, and maybe this is just because Catherine Newton is beautiful, I think endlessly charming, but I'm like, there's nothing about her other than the fact that her mother was murdered viciously and people make fun of it, but there's nothing about her that screams outcast. Like it feels like
there is a lot of telling and not showing with regard, because it was so bizarre, because a lot of characters say, wow, this is the most I've heard you speak in like 3 months. And it's like,
she's been speaking,
but she's been speaking the whole time. Movie. So it's
I don't know.
It's weird that they don't, there's not some montage to show you like at the beginning how she doesn't speak.
We never see Lydia Dietz in school, right? But you look at her, you're like, oh, that girl's an outcast. Oh, that girl is not fitting in with the rest of everything.
Yeah. BJ, what did you think of Catherine Newton's performance as an outcast in this movie, which I agree with Devindra. I also did not buy at all, unfortunately.
Oh, I buy it completely. We see it in the way that everybody around her is acting and how she doesn't act anything like them. We get little moments of her not knowing how to do her hair, not knowing how to do her makeup, eating thread. Like she's doing very weird things, but it's not. The thing that I like so much about this character is that she's a weird girl who's actually weird. She's not weird by Googling what's the weirdest character in a movie. Like she's just genuinely weird. Her interests are weird, and they may not be weird to us because we are also weird people, but they are weird to everyone around her.
I like it when she goes full Desperately Seeking Susan. That's my favorite part.
And they even imply in that like that it's a Halloween costume. That's a weird trait for somebody.
Right. Yeah. No, I get that. Having kids and friends with kids even older than mine, I see who gets bullied and who really has a hard time in school, and it often has nothing to do with their perceived, normalcy or attractiveness or any of those things that you might think this actress didn't bring to it really is. Kids are just cruel, and I think like your mom died from an axe murderer. We're going to be cruel to you like that. To me, I had no qualms about
Except
that.
people weren't really cruel to her, other than that one mean girl, like the girlfriend of the guy she's into. But like, there's no like oppressive. Oh my god, high school is a hellscape for this girl. She's just like she's insular. She's clearly like dealing with a lot. Like, I just feel like more could have been conveyed.
It felt like the movie was missing like 2 to 3 scenes, kind of setting the scene where like where you can see how she operates normally. Like, we get the party scene at the beginning, but like that's not a normal situation, so
people aren't like, why the hell are you here?
Right,
there's no like visceral get this person out of this party vibe. It's weird.
But I also don't think that that's who she's supposed to be. I don't think this is like some underdog story we're supposed to like champion. She's not Carrie White, like that's not who this character is. And I like the fact that she's not this like complete total outcast, that she does have people trying to kind of bring her into the fold, because again, that is also an archetype that we don't see very often. We don't get the girl who's just outside the margins, not because she's like this complete social outcast, but just because there's something a little off about her. She's not, wholly invisible. She's not Invisible Girl by any means, but she's also not popular. She's just there. She's just, I think they refer at one point in the movie to people as being like a not pictured. She's a not pictured.
Yeah. She just recedes into the background. I think
she just exists.
The actress who plays her sister, by the way, fantastic.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
what a great character, what fun, and she's just like really, is into
the Taffy
everything.
character is really another, I think, kind of original creation that you haven't really seen anymore. That kind of like subverts expectations of what that trope is. I think it's very fun.
Liza Soberano, I believe is
Liza Soberano, Filipino superstar.
Yeah, she's great, and the character is interesting because she's like the most decent human in the whole thing until she isn't, right?
Yeah. All right, folks. Why don't we do spoilers for Lisa Frankenstein? So let's get to spoilers for Lisa Frankenstein starting right now. This movie does have an irresistible premise, which is they need to recover body parts for this guy from other living humans. And they need to kill them along the way, and the people they kill are bad. And so it's fun. The audience can kind of root for that a little bit. But I will say, question for you, BJ Colangelo, like how effectively do you think this movie blends the horror versus the comedy aspects?
Oh, this to me is a comedy that happens to have elements of horror. There's not spookiness in this movie. It's horror in the sense that there's like gothic elements to it. But this is to me, this is a lot like I don't want people to take this out of context, but it feels to me like how Shaun of the Dead is a comedy movie that happens to be about zombies. This is a comedy movie that happens to be about dismembering and sewing on body parts.
Yeah, I think the movie's not like particularly scary, or it's not trying to be scary.
No,
but some of the kills are like, the Carla Gugino kill I think is pretty appropriately gruesome. And I thought she was awesome in this movie. It was great to see her in Fall of the House of Usher, where I enjoyed her as well. And then seeing her in this playing a somewhat similar character it was a blast. So yeah,
I had a lot of questions about the father, because he's just like he's sitting there letting this woman just shit all over his dog. It's like he's very much the typical. He looks like an 80s sitcom dad,
right?
Just like with the glasses, like nothing's going on here.
He's the 80s dad. He's Mike Wheeler's dad on Stranger Things.
Exactly.
And then he also plays almost this exact character, but in a non-period piece of Assassination Nation. Like Joe Crest it's like somebody like invented him specifically to sit behind a newspaper and go, "That's nice, honey." Like that's nice. That's his purpose.
But it's one of those things where it's also the movie gives me weird vibes too, because people don't feel real, right? Carla Gugino's so evil. for no reason, but
Oh,
she's
dude.
so evil.
My favorite
Yeah.
line in the whole movie, I rushed home and told my wife this line, is when Taffy is describing her on the phone, and we only hear her side of the conversation, and she describes her manicure, things that would not help anyone find anyone. And she goes, and she wears Elizabeth Taylor White Diamonds perfume. Yes, she's a bitch. It's just the funniest. It's the funniest line in the whole movie, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I love Carla Gugino's her performance in this. I had a friend who was like, I don't understand this character. And I said, okay, well, I need you to take 1 second. And I need you to think of every mom in Better Off Dead. I need you to think of every woman in Edward Scissorhands. And I need you to think of Shelley Long in Troop Beverly Hills, a movie Carla Gugino was in as a child. And now everything's going to make sense for you.
That's amazing.
It totally clicks. The other thing, you brought up Shaun of the Dead, and I was thinking of comparisons to this movie. And the thing about Shaun of the Dead is that movie is so tight. It is so tight about everything, about how every joke lands, about how the messaging it all fits in. And I kept thinking man, I wish I was having that here. I wish or even the Wayne's World experience, which is a movie that is not as much about tight jokes, but it is edited in such a way that really makes everything move and land.
Yeah.
I just kept feeling there's a better movie here. There's a better movie here somewhere. Yeah.
Edgar Wright's philosophy, this is not, he didn't invent this, but it's a philosophy he adheres to, is you want to get into a scene late and leave early. And that's you feel that energy in his movies. Don't know if you really feel it in this movie, but again, as BJ pointed out, maybe that's not what this movie's trying to go after, right? Some of those 80s movies were really shaggy, right? And that's maybe what this movie is imitating. Okay, let's talk briefly about the end of this movie. I think a guy gets his penis hacked off at the end of this movie, right?
He does, and apparently he's just dead immediately after too.
He dies instantly.
He dies instantly.
Listen, if he's erect, there's a lot of blood being shoved into one location. You chop that, you're gonna bleed out.
It's got to spray more or something. I don't know.
I'll take your word
more.
for it. I don't
show the work.
Yeah.
Well, this is not I Spit on Your Grave, so I don't know if we can get away with that in a PG-13 movie. But what they do get away with in this movie in terms of sexuality and PG-13, very, very impressive. Anything with the Hitachi magic wand, hysterical. I was cackling like a cartoon witch in the theater about it.
Well, the idea that she gets to have sex with her crush's penis, she actually makes that happen, right? She gets the penis that she wanted.
Visualize
on a much nicer person.
Yeah.
I mean, were they really not nice though? It seemed like I guess her sister knew that she liked that guy, right? So that was bad. But here's a question: is do we feel like the only person I felt a little bit bad for was the sister at the end? I felt like
her life is ruined.
Her life is ruined. She really didn't. Maybe her sister was a little bit inconsiderate about her, Lisa's romantic interests, but that does not. The punishment did not fit the crime there. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, Lisa killed her mother, and while she's going through the grief process, Lisa's like, "I'm on top of the world," and that is.
I think
it could have been funnier. I don't know. Yeah.
There are movies that make me root for horrible things that our main characters do. I was having fun by the end, but I at no point thought that Lisa was doing the right thing. Right? There was no part of me that was like, what she needs to do is kill more people.
Yeah. I think that's right. But yeah, BJ, I guess I'm curious if you have any thoughts on the moral order of this film, Lisa Frankenstein.
Oh, so for me, I feel like it's foolish to look towards this movie for any sense of morality because Lisa's an unreliable narrator. She's not a good person. We established that pretty easily in the beginning. And so by the time we do have this big moment with Michael and Taffy, she does get a nice message with Taffy where it's like, you know what? You were really nice to me and you saw me when no one else did. And I appreciate that. But I got to go do this because you are never more selfish than when you're an 18-year-old.
Absolutely.
And so I like that the movie leaned into that of we're not trying to make Lisa out to be some hero here. She's clearly in the wrong, but that's fine. We're going to hold on to it with both hands that she's wrong.
The harder thing for me to swallow at the end of the movie was her certainty that she would be able to be brought back to life. because
that's the invincibility of being a teenager.
Mhm.
No, I get that, but I feel like the movie didn't, for whatever rules the movie is establishing for the supernatural stuff, it felt to me like the initial bringing back to life of our Frankenstein character,
Mhm.
or the monster, I should say, is a twist of fate, is a quirk, is a lightning strikes, a wish happened. It doesn't feel like it was tied to anything repeatable.
Yeah.
You know,
No real rules there.
It very
Yeah.
much could have been that. It could have been established that the heating tanning bed was a had magical ability. What they could have established that it was repeatable, and they very much did not. And it felt like, wow, she's really taking a bet on the fact that she'd be able to come back to life. And I don't know. I had a harder time swallowing that than I think.
I think the only explanation was a tattoo he drew on her arm, which was like electricity.
Yeah,
Just
it's the
electricity.
lightning bolt, the electricity of the tanning bed. It's basically like the tanning bed is being used as sort of like a defibrillator in a sense of a word.
Yeah, I know. I got that. I just felt like what causes him to come back to life and what causes her to come back to life are two different situations and
two different electricities. Yeah,
maybe it's a nit to pick, but it got to me.
The other thing that I couldn't stop thinking about was like, are they going to do anything about the axe murder? Like by the end of this movie? Nope.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nothing. Her mother was brutally murdered by an axe murderer who escaped. He's out there somewhere. And I do feel like
that was weird.
They don't live in the same town anymore. They've moved.
It's true.
That's just
but it's possible
baby.
to drive and try to. You have this creature who is now on your side, who has no qualms about killing people. Like, let's start hunting. Let's like.
Why
just
isn't this a Dexter situation? Is the question? You know, like
it kind of is. It kind of is a Dexter situation.
It feels very like Disney princess origin story to me, where it's like, well, we got to kill one of these parents, and are we going to address it? Nope, it's just sad. It's awful.
It's just sad. One thing I want to bring up, just in terms of like things that could have been done better in this movie, is that she is home alone, just watching TV, and first of all, this girl does not actually seem traumatized about the fact that a axe murderer came and attacked her and her mother, while they were home alone. But she's fine being home alone right now, just watching zombie movies. But the creature comes out of nowhere, through the window, through through a whole like comedy of errors. She ends up falling in his arms. And I just feel like you got so much meat there. You got so much. You can have so much fun to set that up, to make this like, oh, this is like a home invasion or something, and she has no clue what's happening, and she fully accepts like, oh, you're the corpse of that grave I always visit. It's like the acceptance is also super quick. It's just kind of funny. I feel like there's more you could have wrestled there.
I do. I love it.
Yeah.
I love that because I miss movies where the rule is suspend your disbelief. I don't care. Like I miss that so much. How did he end up at her house? Yes, he has the rosary, but how does he know where she lives? Who cares? I don't care.
I mean, that part I can understand, but like she's watching a zombie movie, and like you have the perfect opportunity to set up the invasion of a zombie movie that's like mirroring what she's watching, which Shaun of the Dead kind of does at certain points.
I think,
so much more
commenting less on believability and more like there's some dramatic potential that is like maybe, or a comedic potential that is potentially unrealized. That said, BJ, I kind of agree with you on the believability component.
Yes.
This is a movie where people use a tanning bed to fuse live body parts to a zombie. It's like, not a movie that I felt like was super believable. Also, I wanted to say, moral order is not like this is from something you said 10 minutes ago, but like I wasn't trying to say like we should take lessons on how to behave from the show, but I think like every movie has a moral order, or like what we think. The movie has thoughts on like what should happen, or should bad people get punished, or should they get punished in certain situations. That's what I was asking about.
And it feels incongruous when a movie doesn't work with that. Like we talked about that scene in Jurassic World, where that one like PR person gets eviscerated for no reason.
Yeah.
So
in Jurassic World, there is a character who gets completely annihilated by a dinosaur,
brutalized.
Yeah,
but for like, her crime was very insignificant, and so that's a movie where like the moral order feels out of whack, right? But anyway,
well, yeah, I think the moral order of this movie does feel out of whack because Lisa's out of whack. Like her priorities are completely out of whack. So yeah,
fair.
One thing I want to point out that I appreciated is the symmetry of the symmetry is probably the wrong word. The poetic justice of the the body parts that are harvested, like Carla Gudino's doesn't listen, and so her ear is lost. This dude has a gropey hand, so his hand is lost. Other dude is doing bad stuff with his penis, so his penis is lost. Like that, I liked that structural, sort of poetic justice. I thought that was pretty cool.
I also love that every time the creature goes into the tanning bed, he's also hotter when he comes out. I thought that was like
more normal looking, right?
It was like such a hilarious thing of like the more tanning that he's getting from the electricity, the more human he's becoming. But really, it's just like we can't deny all of these youths who watched a lot of Riverdale seeing Cole Sprouse look anything other than beautiful.
You got to give us the real Cole Sprouse at some point.
Right.
Other things left on the table. How is this creature surviving? Is he a zombie that needs human flesh to eat? Because we also see him eating like normal food after a certain point. Just what's going on here with this whole zombie thing?
I kind of referenced it in my limerick, but I do think the Frankenstein monster here.
His name is Frankenstein this time, so they did that on purpose.
Uninteresting. Like he's pretty uninteresting as a character, in my opinion. The movie is just not interested in him. It's so much more interested in Lisa, and that's fine. Like I think Lisa's a much more worthy subject for the film. But I do think there could have been more done to make him interesting,
especially for someone who doesn't speak throughout the course.
Oh, I love him. I mean, his backstory is the animation of the credits, which I thought was very interesting. Of like, we're getting you up to speed. Here's who this character is. Here's what his life was like before he died. And I like that we learn about him the same way that Lisa learns about him, where she's talking at him for an entire movie. And then occasionally he has these really beautiful bits of comedy where he's not saying anything, of just reacting to her, which I really like. And I read somewhere Cole Sprouse went to mime school, which I'm like, good for you, kid. Like that's a great thing to do, is go to mime school.
I was thinking of Hocus Pocus, which really makes us feel for the boy who was the cat. Like, just like that. I felt that as a kid. It's like, that's a little tragic. That's just so sad.
And but in this instance, he's Billy Butcherson. He's Billy Butcherson. He's not Fat Grievings.
Yeah. It's true.
All right, folks. BJ, I'm super glad you got a lot out of this.
I'm glad you got a movie for you.
Yeah. It seems like
I totally respect that. I think that's all. I love it when
well argued, well defended too.
Yeah, I love it when a movie feels made just for me and everybody else hates it. I'm very happy for you, and I think it's a wonderful thing.
And I will say, I got a wonderful text message from my niece, who's 11 years old, and this movie has sort of like completely reshaped her DNA. She wants to get into wearing more goth clothes. She changed every background on her phone and all the widgets to be Lisa Frankenstein. I sent her dad the link to the score. He's like, well, I got to buy that for her now. So it definitely is resonating with people other than myself, which I really like. And it's a Diablo Cody movie, so it's going to be polarizing. Like the people who really love this are going to champion it, make it their entire personality. And then for everyone else, it's not going to work. And that's totally fine. And that's why I think that Diablo Cody is such an interesting screenwriter, because all of her movies seem to feel that way.
Well, it does feel like it is modeled after cult classics, and so therefore it just feels appropriate that it would become a cult classic. It just feels destined to be one.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, at the end of the day, it is impressive that Zelda Williams made a movie. Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.